So you have covered, I think, cell physiology has been covered, and you must be having an idea about the potential, that is the resting potential, action potential. This is what the transport mechanism is been covered. So these are useful for muscle physiology, and also you are having the experimental physiology भी आपको चल रहा है, so it will be much more, I think, helpful for you to understand. So you know the nerve muscle physiology is starting, and you all know in our body there are excitable tissues. Excitable tissues like nerves and muscles, but there are certain tissues which are relatively non-excitable, like these are relatively non-excitable also. Okay, so there are the two nerves, that is the neurons and the muscles. They are mainly excitable tissues in the body. Okay, and how many neurons you are having? 10 billion. Yes. Just like to tell what are the number of neurons you are having. For billions, billions. And what are the number of cells? Yes, fundamental cell physiology. What are the approximate number of cells in the body? 1 trillion, 2 trillion. Huh? This is approximately 100 trillion in the body. That is कितना power अगर करेंगे कितना होगा? 100 trillion is equal to 10 to the power 14. Okay, 100 trillion. And so, and what are the number of neurons? It is approximately 100 billion. Okay, okay. So, a great amount of number contributed by the neurons in your body. So, it is very important to understand, and everyone knows that the neurons in your body, they are the structural unit, they are the building blocks of the nervous system. And basically, what is this function? They receive the impulse and they carry the impulse to the different parts of the body. So the primary function is to receive the stimulus and then to transmit to other neurons or other tissues in your body, depending upon the need. And along with the nervous system, what are the other regulatory systems in your body to control the endocrine? These are two called the major control systems of your body. And the neurons में जो आपका information pass होता है, that is in the form of potential, action potential. Okay, and approximately 100 billion neurons in your body. Okay, 10 to the power 11 neurons are there in your body, and there are along with the neurons there are supporting cells which support the growth of the neurons. Those cells are called the glial cells, that is neuroglial cells, and approximately 10 to 30 times that of the neuron. So these glial cells these are not excitatory cells. जैसे neurons के हैं, muscles they are excitatory cells. लेकिन neurons के they are not excitatory. But what happens that these glial cells secrete certain growth stimulating factors so that the neuron growth is proper. Okay, so they contribute in the growth of neurons and maintenance of the neurons. Okay, and everyone knows that it is having basically three parts. Okay, that is the cell body, yes, and the process, the long process that is called the axon, and the short process that is the dendrite. Okay, so basically these are the major parts. So this is the broad diagram of this. You can see here, this is the cell body. This cell body contains all the important structures, like जैसे दूसरे cells में होते हैं, इसमें भी वही cells होते हैं. वही स्ट्रक्चर्स होते हैं, वही ऑर्गेनल्स होते हैं, माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया, ओके, राइबोसोम, न्यूक्लियस, न्यूक्लियोलस, all the structures are there. But what is the difference here? What of the difference? Mucous granules होते हैं. What is the role of these mucous granules? Protein synthesis में help करता है. These are basically rough endoplasmic reticulum. These are basically the rough endoplasmic reticulum. You can see here these are granules, है ना, जो rough endoplasmic reticulum में granules होते हैं ना, इसके ऊपर में राइबोसोम stacked up होते हैं, and they form the mucous granules and they help in the synthesis of protein. Okay, but what is the difference? और क्या difference होता है? Any other difference apart from other cells? Yes, anyone who can tell? These are very basic questions. What is the other important difference? Myelin sheath के नीचे में होता है कि जहाँ asking about here. Dendrites भी होते हैं. These are the processes. I am asking about the अंदर में जो organelles होती हैं. About that too. The difference. इसमें भी cell membrane चारों तरफ होता है. इसको हम plasma lemma कहते हैं. इसमें भी होता है lipid protein का layers होते हैं. What is the difference है? कौन सी बॉडी भी होते हैं? Centrioles नहीं होते. This is very important. But these lack the centrioles, and you know centrioles are important for division. So that's why what happens that these neurons are suppose that once it has been formed, तो क्या होते हैं? वो बढ़ते नहीं उसके नंबर. Okay, because of the absence of centrioles. But there is certain exception. बोलते हैं the neuron it has to be formed. It is formed before your birth. But there is certain exception. What is that exception? Each neuron continues to grow up after the birth also. Each region of the brain it is in the hippocampal area of the brain. Hippocampal area में क्या होता है? वहाँ के जो neurons होते हैं, it can divide. Okay. Earlier it was not supposed, but recent evidence is supposed it tells more about that thing. That it can grow after birth also. Okay, you can see the structure here. In the cell body, nucleus होता है, usually having nucleolus, single nucleolus mainly होता है, maybe more than one also. Mitochondria also there. There are the nucleus granules, and there are also यहाँ पे दिखाया नहीं है, there are the structural proteins there, that is the microtubules, है ना, also structural support देते हैं, and also helps in the transport mechanism. Okay, there are microtubules, microfilaments are there, है ना, इसमें चारों तरफ चलते हैं. Okay, and this axon hillock, this is the starting point of the axon, है ना, and also called initial segment. Initial segment होते हैं. Okay, and down the it goes the axon. Axon के बाहर में coverings होते हैं. That is the myelin sheath. Always you are having the myelin sheath or not? There may be non-myelinated. दोनों तरह के एक्शन हो सकते हैं न्यूरॉन. मे बी माइलिनेटेड और मे बी नॉन माइलिनेटेड, है ना. तो माइलिन, सपोज दिस इज द माइलिन. ओके, माइलिन इसे बनाता कौन है? द सेल, स्लाइड सेल, दैट इज द Schwann cells in the CNS, peripheral nervous system, and oligodendrocytes in the central nervous system. You all know these things. So these are all the parts. यहाँ पे ultimately क्या करेगा ये? It forms the terminals, that is called the axon terminals. The axon terminals may branch and form synaptic nodes, and it will ultimately form a neuromuscular junction. Okay. So you all know these things. Just to revise those things, the dendrites are the small branching processes. At the other end, you are having the axon, and the plasma level is the lipid bilayer covering, bilayer lipid lipoprotein का membrane है. Like in the other cells, the cytoplasm is having the nucleus, organelles, and the structural proteins, and the nucleus is main the metabolic center. So whatever the requirement of the neuron is there, it has to be formed there in the neuron cell body. Soma में ही बनता है. And then it is transported to the axon, and here it is needed like जो आपके न्यूरोट्रांसमीटर्स बन रहे हैं वो कहाँ बनेंगे, उसके प्रोटीन वहीं से बनेंगे, जाएंगे वो to the axon, it will travel down to the terminal area. So it is also called the metabolic center. And this nucleus is usually having one nucleoli and maybe more than one, and it contains the genetic information. Obviously, it is the DNA, and it will be responsible for protein synthesis. And we have discussed that the centrioles are absent here. So the cytoplasm is having the different organelles. तो साइटोप्लाज्म में होगा, एक तो न्यूक्लियस होगा, न्यूक्लियस के अलावा क्या होगा, डिफरेंट ऑर्गेनेल्स लाइक न्यूक्लियस ग्रैन्यूल्स which are nothing but rough endoplasmic reticulum, and mitochondria, Golgi bodies, then the lysosome, all the structures which the other cells are also having, then the structural proteins like neurofilaments, microtubules, and microfilaments. So all these structures it is having. We have discussed that these major granules from tigroid bodies we get. These are also called tigroid bodies. These are the stacks of rough endoplasmic reticulum which are membrane having the ribosomes. Okay. And what happens that you must have heard about the Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease में क्या होता है, उसमें आपका मेमोरी लॉस होने लगता है, ओल्ड एज में हो जाता है. तो what happens? These neurofilaments, इसमें जो न्यूरोफिलामेंट्स होते हैं, जो स्ट्रक्चरल प्रोटीन्स है, and also the transporting proteins, not only provide the support to the neurons, these microfilaments and neurofilaments also these act as a transporter of different proteins. वहाँ जो बनेगा उसको पहुँचाते हैं. So what happens in the Alzheimer's disease? These neurofilaments become somewhat deranged and they form a tangle that is called neurofibrillar tangle. Okay, वो इसका स्ट्रक्चर क्या होता है, एक टाउ प्रोटीन होता है, वो फॉर्मेशन हो जाता है. Okay, so you can see here these are the normal neurons and these microtubules have been interwoven. Okay, इसके अंदर में जो स्ट्रक्चरल सपोर्ट दे रहा था वो क्या हो गया, जम्बल्ड अप हो गया. Okay, so it is the neurofibrillary tangle, and that's why those people suffer those memory losses. Okay, so what will happen? The transport will not occur, and the information will not be passed. So coming on to the dendrites, the thought processes है, obviously these are the receptive zone, और receptors हैं, वो receptor हैं, these are the small knobby projections, these are the cell body, and ये चारों तरफ में क्या है इसके dendrites हैं. Dendrites के ऊपर में भी क्या होते हैं, they are having a spines over it. Okay, that is called the dendritic spine. What is the purpose of all this? They increase the surface area. Okay, so we receive the signal. Obviously, they have the receptive zone, and they will transmit to the further to the body. Body को ही देगा ultimately, and approximately the 10,000 dendrites per neuron are there in the central nervous system. Okay, and next is the axon, the long tubular network, the long tubular processes. So this is the axon. Obviously, whatever the information which has been cached, it has to be transported. Okay, and this will be transported away from the cell body and to the terminal ending. Okay, so that it will be passed to the other neuron or other tissue. Okay, so they will transmit the propagated impulses to the ending. Obviously, this axon arises from axon hillock, that is the thickened area, and the initial portion of the axon is called the initial segment figure. Okay, जहाँ से start हो रहा है, there are somewhat thickened area, that is called the axon hillock, and these initial portions, जो वहाँ से thickened portion से start हो रहा है, that is called the initial segment. Okay, what is the purpose? The action potential. this is the site, that is the axon hillock, the initial segment. This is the site of the generation of the action potential. Okay, action potential is getting generated here. The axon hillock, the initial segment area. In case of motor neuron, you know the motor neurons and sensory neurons. So motor neurons से कहाँ से start होते हैं action potential? It is in the region of axon hillock or initial segment. But in case of sensory neuron, it is in the first node of vanguard. Okay, जहाँ पे gap होता है myelin sheath का, वहाँ पे start होता है. In the case of sensory neuron. You know all these जो axons जा रहे हैं, उसके अंदर में भी एक्सोप्लाज्म होते हैं. Okay, उसमें फ्लूइड होंगे ना. So these ectoplasm also contain mitochondria, and these mitochondria they may travel from the cell body and it may enter in the ectoplasm of the axon. Axon के जो fluid है वहाँ पे चले जाते हैं. So mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, and they are also having the structural protein. उसमें भी होते हैं. And covering, उसके ऊपर जो covering होगा उसको exoderma कहेंगे. And nerve ending with the ending portion where the neurotransmitters are accumulated there. है ना, बंद करके ऊपर से accumulate होते हैं वहाँ पे in the vesicle form. Okay, the neurotransmitters, that is the chemical messengers. These are the portions where it is accumulated. That is the nerve ending. The axon hillock भी कहते हैं, synaptic terminal भी कहते हैं. So you can divide the neurons depending upon the function. That is called the functional division. So 4 zones में divide कर सकते हैं. Receptor zone, functions of the neurons, आएगा यही होगा function जिसके receptors और dendritic zone का क्या काम होगा? Multiple local potential is generated. Okay, and it is the receptive zone. Information को catch करता है, and it is also origin of the conducted impulses, the propagated action potential. कहाँ पे जनरेट होता है? इनिशियल सेगमेंट होता है फाइनल मोटर न्यूरॉन, एंड इन केस ऑफ सेंसरी न्यूरॉन इट इज इन द नोड्स ऑफ रैंकियर. सेंसरी है, दिस इज द रिसेप्टर जोन. ओके, एंड ये प्रोपेगेटेड एक्शन पोटेंशियल है यहाँ पे जनरेट हो रहा है. देन इट विल ट्रैवल हियर. दिस इज द सिनेप्टिक नोड व्हिच इज हैविंग द न्यूरोट्रांसमीटर्स इन इट. So conductive zone, this is the conducting zone. Axonal process which are transported to the ending, and which axons होते हैं all or none phenomena को follow करते हैं. Okay, you will study when we are discussing about the process. All or none phenomena ये हुआ, अगर stimulus को respond कर रहा है, then it will respond fully or it will not respond. Okay, that is the all or none phenomena. Then the secretory zone. This is the secretory zone which is having the neurotransmitter. Then I have told you along with the neurons there are supporting structures of the neuron that are the glial cells. So there are different types of glial cells, around 10 to 30 times that of the neurons we discussed, and glial cells differ from the neurons. तो कैसे differ करते हैं? They do not form the dendrites or axons, उसमें नहीं होते. Okay, and they are not excitable as we discussed. They are non-excitable. Neurons excitable थे, and they do not, उसमें electrical signaling activity नहीं होता. They are not involved in the action potential transmission. Excitable है ही नहीं तो. Okay, so in this way the glial cells differ, but they are very important. So what are the types of glial cells? There are type of microglial cells and macroglial cells. ठीक है, सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं. Basically glial cells क्या करते हैं? They secrete certain substances that are called, especially called neurotrophins कहते हैं. Okay, and they help in the development of the neuron. Okay, so these are the microglial cells are 20% and macroglial cells are 80%. दो टाइप के glial cells होते हैं. अब microglial cells का क्या काम है? They are basically phagocytic in nature. जो वहाँ पे डेड सेल्स हो रहे हैं, ओके, उसको क्या करते हैं? वो इंडक्ट करते हैं. In that way it protects the cell. So it is phagocytic in nature. Okay, so the microglial cells are phagocytic, and the microglial cells, there are different types of macroglial cells that are the astrocytes, then the oligodendrocytes, and there are Schwann cells. So these structures, astrocytes, oligodendrocytes, and Schwann cells, these are the glial cells, a type of glial cells. Okay, and they are the macroglial cells. And you know, the astrocyte, नाम से पता चल रहा है, astro means star shaped होगा. And what is the role of astrocyte? Blood-brain barrier में help करता है, you know. So these are having an important intermediate filament protein that is called the GFAP, glial pupillary acidic protein. Okay, astrocytes contain the glial pupillary acidic protein. So these are involved in the formation of blood-brain barrier, you know, and it produces, as you discussed, it provides the nourishment to the neuron. It provides nutrition to the neuron. So in that way, it is very important. So it produces neurotransmitters. Okay, and there are two types of basically astrocytes. एक fibrous होता है, एक protoplasmic. Fibrous astrocyte and protoplasmic astrocyte. Fibrous astrocyte mainly participate in white matter में जो ये participate करते हैं. Okay, they reside mainly in the white matter of the brain, and the protoplasmic astrocytes they mainly are situated in the gray matter. Okay, so these are the types of glial cells. And the other we have discussed oligodendrocytes. They do the myelination, है ना, myelin sheath का formation करते हैं central nervous system area में, and it is important that these oligodendrocytes can myelinate multiple axons. Axons का ही myelination होता है ना, so they can myelinate multiple axons at a point of time. लेकिन this is not happens with Schwann cells. They can myelinate only one axon at a time. Okay, this is the difference. Then Schwann cells, you know, this myelinate the peripheral nervous system axons. Okay, and they myelinate a single neuron at a point of time. This is the difference. ये क्या करता है, मल्टीपल एक्सन्स को माइलिनेशन कर सकता है एक पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम, बट द Schwann cells can myelinate a single axon at a point of time. Then you know there are different types of axons. There may be having the myelin and they may not be having the myelin sheath. That is the myelinated axon or non-myelinated axon. And this was the scientist who is this? Comment. This was Theodor Schwann. Okay. This was the physician who is credited for the discovery of myelin sheath, and he introduced the process of myelinogenesis. Okay, and also he gave the structure of न्यूरिलेमा. न्यूरिलेमा क्या हुआ, सबसे आउटर कवरिंग को कहते हैं, है ना. माइलिन शीट के बाहर में भी एक कवरिंग होता है, दैट इज कॉल्ड द न्यूरिलेमा. So the myelinated axon, obviously it is having the myelin around the axons, and we have discussed that myelin sheath peripheral nervous system and Schwann cell बना रहा है, CNS का oligodendrocytes बना रहा है. And what is this myelin sheath? This is the lipoprotein, or as we इसका जो membrane होता है, this myelin contains the proteins and lipids, and mostly it is having the protein 80% to 20%. 80% lipids होता है and 20% proteins होता है. Okay, and water. So the lipid is cholesterol, phospholipids and glycosylolipids. And what are the myelin? कहाँ पे मिलेंगे हमें myelinated axons? In case of the somatic motor nerves होते हैं, which are in your control. The voluntary control में जो होते हैं skeletal motor जो fibers होते हैं, large diameter somatic nerve fibers. Okay, इसमें मिलेंगे. And also in the autonomic nerve fibers में किसमें मिलेंगे? Which area? Autonomic nerve fibers is having the preganglionic fibers and the postganglionic fibers. Do you know that? Preganglionic में मिलेंगे या postganglionic में usually? With some exception. Preganglionic here. Preganglionic neurons are usually myelinated. Okay. Preganglionic fibers of the autonomic nervous system. These are the myelinated axons. You can see in this structure. इस structure में देख सकते हो. This is the cross section of the spinal cord. है ना, ये ventral arm है. Okay, you can see here. यहाँ से cell body यहाँ पे situated है. This is the axon. This is the somatic nerve. Somatic nerve में बीच में गैंग्लिया नहीं मिलेगा. वही डिफरेंस है दोनों. Autonomic nerve and somatic nerve fibers. Autonomic में क्या होगा, बीच में गैंग्लिया मिलेगा. प्री गैंग्लियनिक फाइबर्स इसमें होंगे और पोस्ट गैंग्लियनिक फाइबर्स होंगे. विल डिस्कस मोर. ये आपको ऑटोनॉमिक नर्वस सिस्टम से पढ़ाया जाएगा. इट विल लर्न मोर अबाउट दिस. लेकिन सोमैटिक नर्व जो होते हैं, सोमैटिक नर्व फाइबर्स, देयर नो गैंग्लियन. दिस इज वन ऑर्डर न्यूरॉन ओनली. दिस इज टू ऑर्डर न्यूरॉन. यू कैन सी हियर. एक ऑर्डर यहाँ से यहाँ गया, सेकंड ऑर्डर यहाँ से स्टार्ट. ओके, एंड यू कैन सी हियर ये माइलिनेटेड है और प्री गैंग्लियनिक फाइबर्स भी माइलिनेटेड. ओके, then the nodes of ganglia. Nodes are ऐसे क्या हुआ, बीच में जो गैप है. The myelin sheath is having some gap. So the gap between the Schwann cells, जो Schwann cells बना रहा होता है आपको myelin sheath, बीच में क्या होता है, गैप हो जाता है. That is called the nodes of ganglia. So at the nodes of ganglia, the axonema, the covering of the axon, is directly exposed to the ECS. And each node का बीच में कितना लेंथ होता है, that is 0.5 to 1 micrometer. Okay, and this is important for pulsatory conduction, faster conduction. No, यहाँ से information क्या होगा, jump हो जाएगा. So the action potential jump from the node to node. So the conduction is faster. And internodal distance कितना होता है, 1 to 2 millimeter. So each node कितना लेंथ है इसका, 0.5 to 1 micrometer का लेंथ है. लेकिन दो नोड के बीच में कितना होता है, इंटरनोडल डिस्टेंस इज 1 to 2 millimeter. So what is the process of myelinogenesis? Myelin sheath का formation कैसे होता है? So you know that it is formed by the Schwann cells in the peripheral nervous system. Taking here the Schwann cells, about the peripheral nervous system. So what happens that this is the axon here. The axon has to invaginate the, this is the Schwann cells. This, what happens that the axon which is coming out to the cell body से जो नीचे जा रहा है, it invaginates this Schwann cells. Schwann cells को वो invaginate करता है. The axon invaginates into the cytoplasm of the adjacent Schwann cells. Okay, तो नीचे जाएगा, इस तरह से invagination होगा and they remain suspended. It forms a fold and that fold is called sheath axon. Okay, and then what happens that this axon, ये जो fold है यहाँ पे, ये fold क्या करता है, इसके it becomes greatly elongated and it spirals around. चारों तरफ spiraling हो जाता है इसका around the axon several times. And what happens that the adjacent layers of the membrane के बीच में लिपिड का डिपोजिशन होना शुरू हो जाता है. तो यू कैन सी हियर लिपिड का डिपोजिशन दोनों मेम्ब्रेन के बीच में होना शुरू हो जाता है. ओके, so in that way what happens that the lipid gets deposited between the adjacent layers of the membrane and the thin layer of Schwann cell cytoplasm form. And बाहर में एक और लेयर क्या अपना आता है, सबसे बाहर में लेयर जो होता है, that is called the layer. Okay, what is the timing? You know the sensory fibers, जो fibers हमारे लेके जा रहे हैं, में लेके जा रहे हैं. Okay, that is the dorsal column. आप जब पढ़ोगे CNS में dorsal column आपसे पढ़ाया जाएगा when touch temperature के अंदर. So the sensory fibers of the dorsal column, they are supposed to myelinate at intrauterine light 4 to 6 months of intrauterine. Okay, so after that the motor tract, that is the pituitary tract, they myelinate. They remain unmyelinated at birth. Birth से थोड़ी दिन के बाद ये क्या होता है, complete होता है. Approximately at 2 months of age, it starts myelinating. तो motor tract जो है वो start होता है 2 months of birth. Okay, उसके बाद वो myelinate करना start होता है and it is completed up to 2nd year of life. तो myelination का process complete होता है. You know, at 2 months of life, the child has learned to walk. So this myelin sheath, this is important that जो myelin sheath बन रहा है, जो axons के around wrap up कर रहा है, तो दो membrane के बीच में वो क्या होता है, लिपिड का डिपोजिशन होता है, okay, and this protein helps in the to stick together the adjacent layers of the swan cells. They stick to each other tightly with the help of a protein called protein 0. Okay, ये protein क्या होता है, membrane को जो myelin sheath cover हो रहा है चारों तरफ जो wrap up हो रहा है वो क्या करता है, stick करने में help करता है. So what happens that during अगर myelin sheath का degeneration हो रहा है, there is a condition इसमें अगर mutation हो गया, okay, अगर if the this protein gets mutated, this protein gets changed, okay, what will happen? This will be there will be defective myelination. So a disease होता है that is called multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis में what happens? This protein gets mutated, okay, and there is defective myelination, okay, so that it will hamper the transmission of information, okay. So what happens that multiple sclerosis, which is an autoimmune disease, that is autoantibodies का formation होता है और ये इसको destroy करने लगता है. So the autoimmune disease, what happens that there is patchy destruction of this myelin sheath. There is the myelin sheath starts getting destroyed and the conduction velocity will hamper. The speed of conduction will hamper. Okay. So the functions we have discussed that obviously it increases the speed of conduction and also it insulates the axons. it क्या करता है, it forms a protective covering and also it acts as an insulating organ, insulating instrument, okay, insulating covering for the axon. So it reduces the expenditure and also it is responsible for the color. So white matter, nerve fibers का color क्या होता है, white matter, you know, brain में gray matter होता है and white matter. You know, everyone knows the gray matter is formed by the cell bodies. है ना, जो nerve fibers होते हैं that form the white matter. So it is responsible for the color of the white matter in the brain. So unmyelinated, everyone knows that you are not having a myelin sheath. इसका examples क्या होते हैं, the small diameter somatic nerve fibers होते हैं, okay, somatic nerve that is a voluntary जो control में जा रहा है, the small diameter के होते हैं, वो क्या होते हैं, वो unmyelinated होते हैं. So discussed in the classification of nerve fibers, ये C type के fibers होते हैं, A, B, C, है ना, depending upon the diameter, है ना, उससे A, B, C का क्लासिफिकेशन किया हुआ है. तो लैंगर साहब ने दिया था, डिस्कस दैट स्लाइड. तो द स्मॉल डायमीटर के जो फाइबर्स होते हैं, स्पेशली द सी फाइबर्स, these C fibers are small diameter fibers. These are they unmyelinated होते हैं. And also pre-ganglionic वाले अभी बताया था, ophthalmic nerve fibers, they are mostly myelinated. जो post-ganglionic होते हैं, they are unmyelinated mostly, with some exception. Okay. And also in the dorsal nerve root, and the dorsal nerve root जो आपका spinal cord की तरफ जो है ना, आप चल रहे हैं. Then the fibers in the invertebrate, जो invertebrate animals होते हैं उसमें usually unmyelinated होते हैं. Obviously the speed of conduction will be somewhat lower. And see here, this is the myelinated, this is the unmyelinated. दोनों में बाहर में कभी न्यूरिलेमा का हो, न्यूरिलेमा का कवर. यू कैन सी हियर, यहाँ पे भी क्या है, न्यूरिलेमा है, प्लेस आल्सो इंटैक्टिंग द न्यूरिलेमा. लेकिन न्यूरिलेमा के नीचे में यहाँ पे माइलिन शीट है, बट देयर इज नो माइलिन शीट हियर. दिस इज द माइलिन शीट, यू कैन सी दिस इज द swan cells which are forming the myelin sheet. These are the nodes of Ranvier. So now coming on to the exoplasmic transport. So you know what happens that the substances, the proteins which are necessary for the survival of the neuron, they are produced. वहाँ पे बन कहाँ पे रहा है, where it is getting produced, where it is getting produced, कहाँ पे बन रहा है, Formation कहाँ पे हो रहा है? In the cell body, because it is having the nucleus, metabolic center है वहाँ. So it has to be transported. All the parts of the neuron, they require the energy, they require the protein for the survival. So it has to be transported, and that transport is called the exoplasmic transport. जो एक्सोप्लाज्म में नीचे जाएगा, है ना, and it will help in the formation of, it will help in the transmission of impulses. So the transfer of substances between the cell body and the axon terminal, सबसे नीचे वाला जो पार्ट है, axon terminal. So mainly along the length of the axon. Length of the axon से नीचे थ्रू जाएगा ना वो. So in the axon terminal, so this process is called the exoplasmic transport. Okay, and whether it is bidirectional or unidirectional, दोनों साइड में हो सकता है या एक ही साइड में हो सकता है? That is not correct. It may be in both directions. There may be anterograde transport also, and there may be retrograde transport also. Okay, so we'll discuss कि anterograde भी हो सकता है and retrograde भी हो सकता है. What are the substances which are getting transported? It may be protein, it may be also organelles, है ना? एक्सोप्लाज्म में भी होता है माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया, so it may travel. So there are other substances they require for the development, growth, and maintenance of the neuron. So there may be different types of exoplasmic transport. That may be anterograde. Anterograde मतलब cell body से नीचे जा रहे हैं towards the terminal. Retrograde from the nerve terminal back to the cell body. And there may be transneural transport. That is, एक जो न्यूरॉन्स है वो बगल वाले न्यूरॉन से भी ट्रांसपोर्ट करते हैं, आपस में एक्सचेंज करते हैं. ओके, दैट इज कॉल्ड द ट्रांसन्यूरल ट्रांसपोर्ट. So you can see here there is the anterograde transport. That is the transport of material from the cell body towards the terminal. Okay, that is the anterograde transport. And what are the substances which are getting anterograde transport? किसका होता है? Usually the neurotransmitters. These neurotransmitters, where they are accumulated, where they are usually secreted, कहाँ पे होते हैं neurotransmitters? कहाँ पे होगा? जब टर्मिनल का नीचे में अनैप्टिकल, but they are produced in the cell body, and so neurotransmitters they will be anterogradely transported. And but this transport, the anterograde transport हो रहा है, it may be fast transport भी हो सकता है with a higher speed up to 400 meter per second, and there will be slow transport also. So and this can be इसको मैपिंग किया गया है by a dye that is called the leucine, the speed leucine. तो इसे देखा गया है. Fast. So the fast exoplasmic transport speed is up to 400 millimeter per day. That is the speed is 400 millimeter per day. That is fast exoplasmic transport. Slow is 0.5 to 2, and this is supported by a tubular protein. Microtubules आपको बताया था, तो microtubules क्या होते हैं? वो structural support भी देते हैं, and it also helps in the transport of protein. So this thymosin is a type of microtubular protein. Okay, so this is help by fast exoplasmic transport में the protein, microtubule protein participates, that is called the thymosin. Okay, like the transport of fast transport किसका होता है? Like the organelles. Okay, and the vesicles. तो vesicles जो आते हैं जिसमें neurotransmitters accumulated होते हैं, these vesicles are having the protein. जो vesicles होते हैं, तो कौन सा neurotransmitter usually होता है neuromuscular junction में? Acetylcholine होता है. These acetylcholine are accumulated in a packet. Those packets are called the vesicles. जो vesicles होते हैं उसके जो membranes होते हैं, they are protein in nature. Then those protein has to come from the cell body. They are not from there in the synaptic terminal. Okay, so the vesicles, they are also transported by fast exoplasmic transport, and there are other glycoproteins. Then there are slow transport, exoplasmic transport. Speed is very low, 0.5 to 2 millimeter per day, and like different microtubules, microfilaments, they are transported by slow exoplasmic transport. एक्सोप्लाज्म में एक्सोन एरिया में भी क्या होते हैं? देयर आर माइक्रोट्यूब्यूल्स एंड माइक्रोफिलामेंट्स. ओके, so they are on there in the cell body and they are transported by the slow exoplasmic transport. Then the retrograde transport, that is the backward movement. Okay, that is the synaptic terminal होते हैं, वहां से वापस जा रहा है सेल बॉडी में जा रहा है. तो which are the substances which may be transported through this retrograde transport mechanism? What? कौन सा हो सकते हैं? There are different viruses. जैसे क्या होता है, चिकन पॉक्स डिजीज होता है, varicella virus. Okay, what happens that if it is infected, वो क्या होता है, स्किन में नर्व्स होते हैं, वो उसको इन्फेक्ट करता है. तो वो क्या करता है, जो आपको जो नर्व होते हैं वहां से जाकर क्या करता है, वो डॉर्मेंट स्टेज में रहता है ना. एंड व्हाट हैपेंस दैट आफ्टर सर्टेन पीरियड ऑफ टाइम इट में ट्रैवल बैक and it may affect the cell body. Okay, so there will be different. The retrograde transport का speed is 200 millimeter per day, and this is brought about by a protein, microtubule protein, that is a dynein. Okay, and इसको ही मैच किया गया है एक आपको डाई से, that is the horse radish peroxidase dye, and example is transport of different toxins, viruses. Okay, like rabies virus. रेबीज वायरस में क्या होता है, कुत्ता काटता है, डॉग काटता है, तो क्या होता है, काफी दिनों के बाद वो पर्सन डिजीज वो क्या कर सकता है, मैनिफेस्ट कर सकता है. व्हाई इज इट सो? क्योंकि डोरमेंट स्टेज में पड़ा रहता है. ओके, टर्मिनल एरिया में आफ्टर सर्टेन पीरियड ऑफ टाइम इट में ट्रांसपोर्ट एंड इन्वॉल्व द सेल बॉडी. ओके, so the transport of viruses, especially the herpes virus and the rabies virus. Okay, this may occur by the retrograde transport mechanism. And also different toxins like tetanus toxin. Okay, this may also follow the retrograde transport mechanism. And there are different nerve growth factors. The nerve growth factors होते हैं न्यूरोट्रॉफिन, वहां पे भी होते हैं. सिनेप्टिक एरिया में, टर्मिनल एरिया में भी क्या होते हैं, बहुत सारे ग्लाइल सेल्स होते हैं, न्यूरो ओके कोडिंग सेल्स होते हैं. तो it may produce the nerve growth factor. जो nerve growth factors है वो भी ट्रांसपोर्ट हो सकते हैं रेट्रोग्रेड ट्रांसपोर्ट में. एंड ऑल्सो देयर आर रीअपटेक ऑफ सर्टेन न्यूरोट्रांसमीटर्स, जैसे एसिटाइल कोलिन हो गया. एसिटाइल कोलिन सिनेप्टिक टर्मिनल से वो रिलीज होता है इन द सिनेप्टिक क्लेफ्ट एरिया. व्हाट हैपेंस दैट एसिटाइल कोएंजाइम में एंड कोलिन में ब्रेकडाउन होता है. ओके, एंड दिस कोलिन में बी ट्रांसपोर्टेड बैक. ओके, ये वापस जा सकता है आपको सिनेप्टिक टर्मिनल एरिया में एंड इवन टू द सेल बॉडी ऑल्सो वापस जा सकता है. तो इसमें हैपन दैट दिस टाइप्स ऑफ रेट्रोग्रेड ट्रांसपोर्ट may occur. When there are transneural transport, as we discussed, there may be substances which may be transported across the synapse. एक साइनस से यहाँ पे दूसरा साइनस इस साइड, तो क्या हुआ, एक दूसरे से अगल बगल वाले से वो ट्रांसपोर्ट कर सकते हैं. ओके, so there will be the transport of substances across the synapse of presynaptic membrane. You know, synapse जहाँ पे बनते हैं एक presynaptic membrane होता है, वो synaptic membrane. तो presynaptic membrane एक न्यूरॉन का होता है, दूसरे न्यूरॉन का presynaptic membrane वो ट्रांसपोर्ट कर सकते हैं of another neuron. Like trophic substances of protein substances which are helpful in the growth of the neuron. Okay, so the trophic substances like nerve growth factors may also help the neighboring neuron. Okay, for the growth of the neuron, for the maintenance of the neighboring neuron. It helps to maintain the synaptic contact. So there will be different types of transport. These exoplasmic transport, जो transport हो रहे हैं, they are certain drugs and molecules, chemicals, which may block those transport. Okay, तो क्या होता है, एक ड्रग होता है, you must have heard, तो कॉल्चिस्टीन एक ड्रग होता है, have you heard of that? In which it is used? Mitotic inhibitor होता है. What is the clinical use of this drug? हाँ, अरे बोलो, stand up and tell. It's okay, but what is the clinical use? कॉल्चिस्टीन एक ड्रग होता है जो मेडिकल डॉक्टर्स यूज करते हैं. इट इज यूज इन गॉड यूरिक एसिड का फॉर्मेशन को रोकता है. ओके, राइट. So what happens that the colchicine it will be blocked by colchicine, the cyanide, then there are dinitrophenol and prolonged NOx. Okay, these are the substances which will block this transport mechanism. Okay, colchicine, the microtubule movement को disrupt करता है. Okay, so it may stop the division and others work through oxidative जो phosphorylation हो रहा है उसको ब्लॉक करते हैं. That is ATP formation को रोकते हैं. Okay, so just you have to maybe ask sometimes in Viva कि क्या कोई से ड्रग जानते हो जो आप there are the blockers of this transport mechanism. I will discuss this neuronal growth. After that, I will finish. So, we have discussed that there are certain substances which are helping the growth of the neuron, maintenance of the neuron. Okay, these are called the nerve growth factors. इसको क्या कहते हैं? nerve growth factor. शॉर्ट नोट में आता है एग्जाम. न्यूरोट्रोफिन या nerve growth factor तो शॉर्ट नोट आ सकता है एग्जाम. ना, so nerve growth factor is very important. So there are various factors which affect the neuronal development, growth, and survival. These are important for growth of the neuron, development of the neuron, and survival of the neuron. Okay, and there are different types of nerve growth factors. The more important among those is the neurotrophins. Neurotrophins, and there are other growth factors. So you have to name these nerve growth factors. The first and foremost is the neurotrophins. Then there are other growth factors. You just have to name them: ciliary neurotrophic factors. Then there are brain derived. Then there are glial cell line derived neurotrophic factors. Okay. Then there are leukemia inhibitory factors. These are the factors which are helping the growth of the neuron, maintenance of the neuron system. Remember, there are neurotrophins. There are other growth factors. The other growth factors, there are ciliary neurotrophic factors. Then there are glial cell neurotrophic factors. Then there are leukemia inhibitory factors. Then there are PDGF platelet derived growth factors. Then there are fibroblast growth factors. Okay, these are the factors. Then there are IGF insulin-like growth factors. Okay, insulin-like growth factors. So these are the different nerve growth factors we know. Then there the neurotrophins. So neurotrophins, as you discussed, these are the proteins to the neuron. They are promoting the nerve growth and survival, and they are produced by the nerve, muscle, gland, and astrocytes. Astrocytes, glial cells, ये सारे produce करते हैं neurotrophins. Okay. And what are the different neurotrophins we know? These are the nerve growth factors. Then there are brain-derived neurotrophic factors. Then there are neurotrophin third. Then there are neurotrophin 4 and 5. So these are types of neurotrophins we know. These are the trophic proteins which are helping in the promotion and the survival of nerves, neurons. So we just have to name the different neurotrophins. That is the nerve growth factor, NGF, then brain derived neurotrophic factors, then there are neurotrophin third, then there are 4 and 5. Then there are nerve growth factors. This nerve growth factor is the first neurotrophin to be identified. This is the first neurotrophin we know, and this is mainly for the survival of the sympathetic nerve and the some sensory nerve. Then what happens that ये कैसे करता है आपको बचाता कैसे न्यूरॉन्स को? It is the apoptosis. What is apoptosis? Programmed cell death. तो apoptosis को ये decrease करते हैं by acting through a receptor. जो important है कौन से receptor से काम करते हैं? Tyrosine kinase A receptor. इससे काम करते हैं. Okay. So it decreases the apoptosis process of the neuron by acting through this tyrosine kinase A receptor, and an autocrine survival factor for memory B lymphocytes के लिए भी काम करते हैं, memory B lymphocytes, and it is formed in higher concentration. तो nerve growth factors है, इसमें मिलते हैं ज़्यादा saliva of the male bite, इसमें बहुत मिलते हैं. Then brain derived neurotrophic factors, as you discussed, this promotes the growth of peripheral nervous system के जो neurons है, nerves है, उसको ये growth में help करते हैं. And it also acts through tyrosine kinase A receptor. Okay. And neurotrophin third, this promotes cutaneous mechanoreceptors. Okay, इसके growth में help करते हैं. This acts through all the tyrosine kinase A, B, C, किसी भी receptor से ये काम करते हैं. Then 4 and 5, it acts through tyrosine kinase B receptors. Okay. So these are the types of neurotrophins and nerve growth factors we look. In the next class, we will discuss about classification and types of neurons and the properties of neurons.